Hello and welcome. We'll give everyone just a couple minutes to come in, and we're going to be recording today's session as well, so you'll have it for reference. But thank you all for joining us. And if you'd like to just blow up the chat, please let us know from where in the world you're signing in from. Always nice to see the variety of different locations. I'm Keating Sherry. I'll be the moderator on today's panel discussion about effective China recruitment travel. I'm also joined by my esteemed colleagues, Chloe Leo. She's a co-founder of Sunrise International, based in Beijing, and Shan Leo, who is our director of partnerships, and she is in China as well, manages a lot of social media. We're joined today by some all-star panelists, which we're really excited to have with us. If you all could just give a brief introduction about yourself and your respective institution, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Do you want me to start off?
Please, Pierce.
All right. My name is Pierce Golden. I'm the Senior Assistant Director of Graduate Admission at Suffolk University. We're located in Boston. I've been with Suffolk for about close to 4 years now. I've been working in higher education and education space for about 10 years. I have a pretty long background dealing with China, working with Chinese students and teachers. I lived in China for about 5 years, starting in 2014. That was my first time into China. And my most recent trip, post-COVID, was in 2023 and 2024. So really happy to be here today and speak with you all about a really important topic.
Thanks, Pierce. Raphael, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, everyone. Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Rafael Alvarado. I work for Kansas State University. I'm the Assistant Director of International Recruitment. I'm originally from South America, from Colombia. I started my career in higher education in Chicago, first working for a private university, IIT, Illinois Institute of Technology. After that, I worked for the education for profit sector for Laureate Education, specifically for Kendall College in Chicago. Then I worked for a business school in Spain. I was working remotely from out of Chicago. And 2.5 years ago, I joined Kansas State University. So again, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Raphael. Bayu.
Thank you, Keating. My name is Bayu Sutrisno. I'm the Assistant Director of International Admissions at Pace University. We're a mid-sized private university located in New York City and like downtown in the financial district. I've been with Pace University since 2019, like summer of 2019, so pre-pandemic. Before that, I was in another institution in New York for about a year. So I've been in international admissions for, it's crazy, almost 7 years. But in terms of my role, I've been at Pace as the assistant director, kind of going through like a multitude of responsibilities and roles as, starting with like recruitment, reviewing applications. I'm also a DSO. Generally, I don't really have a market, so I kind of go everywhere, and China is something that we're trying to get back in terms of our initiative of increasing enrollment. So the first time post-pandemic going to China was in 2023. And then also the second time last year in 2024, but hope to go back for this fall recruitment.
Excellent. Well, thank you for those introductions. And just for our attendees, this is going to be a Q&A session, so really feel free to bring in your questions that you have for these experts as well as our Chinese team. And I think first question we can kind of dive into off the bat was, how was your experience getting a Chinese visa? And tell us really about the conversations you had the last time you were in China with prospective students. Did they look different than they did in previous years? Have things evolved there? Feel free to dive into it.
Sure, I can kick things off. So starting with the visa process. So I have had several visas over the years. I've always relied on using a visa agent. So even though I'm in close proximity to New York City, which is the closest consulate that I would use, it's just not logistically, it's not convenient, and it's not really that realistic to be able to go in person to make those appointments. So I've always relied on an agent, and they've always been um, very reliable. There are several agents out there that you can use to get your visa. This is not a plug by any means, but I've always used CVSC. CVSC has always been pretty, reliable, and I've used them for almost a decade. But there are several out there that are very reliable. And the process is usually pretty fast. It takes about a week or so for you to get all the documentation that you need to get your invitation letter, to make sure that you're getting a business visa. Um, and so once you get that, you just send everything in. You do have to send your physical passport in. And the processing time for that usually is another week or so. Um, but other than that, I've not had any major issues. I'm not sure if Rafael or Bayu have had similar situations with the visa process, but for me, it's usually been very straightforward.
Yes, for me also, my experience was like Pierce's. I use a visa agent. Actually, I got my Chinese visa for the first time last year, and I relied on Kirin. Actually, he was the one I reached out to him for suggestions how to handle that process. So he recommended a visa agent. Was very quick. I had to mail my passport. It was sent to the consulate in Chicago, but it was very quick in took 2 days, 2 business days to get my passport back with the visa. So it was a very good, easy process to handle.
Well, thanks for the shout out there, Raphael. It was a pleasure, obviously, helping out there. And Bayu, your experience also
Yeah,
was pretty similar?
um, pretty easy. And I won't go too long into it, but I actually physically went to the Chinese consulate. Um, so I think, yeah, that was 2023 when it was like post-pandemic, and it was like the first time they were allowing foreign tourists. So I believe at that time they weren't accepting any visa agents. So I had to physically go there, and obviously I'm in New York, so it was easy for me. The process was very easy. You just needed to like have every document. I think everyone, people that were missing one thing were turned away. Um, uh, but I think now I would recommend if you do use agent, because you don't want to stand online for 2 hours. That's kind of what I had to do. But besides that, it was pretty seamless and easy. So, and I got my passport back. I want to say within a week or two max. But it was easy. But if you can use a visa agent, and especially if you're not near a consulate, I would recommend that, like my colleagues are saying.
One thing I'll add to that is when you all are thinking about traveling to China, you'll want to make sure that everything is booked before you, or tentatively booked at least, flights and things, because you'll need to show proof of that in the visa application. So you don't necessarily have to have everything booked out, like hotels and things, but you do need to have flight ticket booked. And so, just making sure that you have that as proof of your itinerary, or, your rough itinerary.
That's an excellent point. And while we're talking about sort of pre-departure, are there any apps you recommend folks download prior to going over to China? Anything that you found to be invaluable over there based off your recent trip, or anything you'd wish you had downloaded prior?
You said apps?
Apps, yeah.
Yeah, I have a list here actually. Definitely. There are many that are essential, and then there are many that you really should consider getting. Number one, first and foremost, is WeChat and Alipay. So WeChat, you could in fact replace Alipay with WeChat Pay. They now fully support international credit cards, so that is extremely convenient, and that ties into one of our questions about what's changed, about traveling between pre-COVID and now. But so WeChat is your essential tool for communication while you're in China, while you're on tour, communicating with colleagues. If you're open to communicating with prospective students, everyone has a different policy with that, but that is the number one communication app for um, for all purposes. One other example I have would be Pleco. Pleco is something, if you want to learn Mandarin, if you want to be able to identify certain words or characters, it's a dictionary in your pocket. It can be offline. It's very helpful. It's just a personal recommendation. If you're arranging any of your personal travel, trip.com is the equivalent of Ctrip. So it's an English version of Ctrip, and that is very useful if you want to book anything within country. Again, if you're arranging your own travel. I have a couple others, but Bayou, Rafael, if you want to jump in, I don't want to say them all.
Yeah, just to piggyback, I think a lot of things has changed more electronic. I remember I did take cash out, and a lot of places didn't accept cash. So Alipay definitely is something that you definitely want to have, especially WeChat too. We do communicate with students, admitted students, prospective students through WeChat. We have WeChat groups, but just to get around, definitely use WeChat. WeChat is kind of like everything all in one, all the essential apps in one, as well as Alipay. Also, Didi, which is kind of their taxi Uber service. So if you're trying to get around, um, definitely get Didi. I use Didi. Depending on the city, you could definitely use the metro, which is very convenient if you're adventurous. But definitely get Didi. It'll be easy. And I think there are functions where you could translate to English. I think most of the apps can translate to English. So if your Mandarin is not as great as mine, you could definitely translate it.
Yeah, for me, lifesavers were Alipay, Didi, and WeChat. So also, sometimes even in international hotels, staff they have challenges speaking English. So it's
Mhm.
good to have some kind of translator handy, just in case. It doesn't happen a lot, but also when you're on the street, you might need a quick translation.
It's a great point. And the
Yeah.
translation tools have improved so much in the last few years with AI, where I
Yeah,
think it really can enhance a conversation and allow you to connect more with your target audience.
Yeah, also
absolutely.
about WeChat moment. Like everyone told you need to download WeChat because everyone in China they use WeChat. But the moment is also very important. Like when you are arrive in China, you can post your trip updates like day one in Shanghai or something like that to keep it like as a human. You can show your face and share your stories. It can help Chinese schools can see you as a real partners, not just a brand or school or something. Yeah, I just want to add that.
That's a good point. And then potentially they can share that within their network. And that can be ultimately quite helpful.
Yeah, it's like a social media tool in a sense,
Absolutely.
And
like Instagram. Yeah.
one other that I would like to add to the list is for VPNs. If you're looking to access any, Google product, any social media that's based in the US, you'll want a VPN. It's not absolutely critical to have one because most, at least for me, our CRM that we use, Outlook, all of that is fine, but Gmail, Instagram, all of that, it won't work. So you'll need a working VPN. Strong recommendation would be Astral. There have been many that come and go over the years, and some are just really not reliable. So Astral really has, through the first time that I've been there in 2014 to last year, it's remained very consistent. So that would be another recommendation. And Baidu Maps, that one is another one. So Google Maps does not work. So you'll if you find yourself wanting to explore on your own or whatever, it's just good to have a map backup in case.
And we'll share with all of our attendees a PDF that has all of this outline. And we'll also make some updates to that based off, all of your excellent insights there. Now, just to move things along to the conversations you had when you were in China, would love to hear if you've noticed any shifts in student priorities in recent years, such as program preferences, career aspirations, Any changes there? Any things that you found to be effective or not effective that you guys would like to share?
Yeah, let's start kidding. So something I noticed was heavy um, interest in rankings. In general, students are very interested in rankings for the universities. Also, a topic that was common, it was safety, especially from parents, safety for their students in the US. So they want to feel welcome. They want to feel safe. Those were very top topics when I visited.
Yeah, safety definitely is a question that comes up frequently. So we will preemptively let students know, what the safety record is like, and we talk about life in our city in Boston, and I would recommend that you do the same when you talk with students, because you can expect that it's on their mind even if they don't ask you. So that, being fully transparent about that and trying to reassure them about the services and resources that are available, because it's definitely on their mind and certainly with their families' considerations. Um, Outcomes are always very important to Chinese students. As Rafael said, rankings are also very important for a very practical reason. We can talk about it if we have time later, but why they're rankings focused as a nation, and culturally too. Um, but definitely outcomes are a major factor. We've also noticed cost is a rising factor in determining, um, where a student might be looking. So there is a little bit more price sensitivity. But ultimately, students really and families, they look in time spans of about a decade. They don't, whereas US, we tend to look at year by year or in election cycles. Families in China are very much thinking long term. So, we haven't, and in my most recent trip, we haven't really seen any major shifts in their core values of getting a degree abroad has really not changed. They're still very much interested in doing that. But there's just some logistical, potential barriers to getting there that we have to help them understand.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit, I think a lot of the students and parents are pretty savvy to do their research. Obviously, ranking is a big thing, and cost sensitivity. A lot of students and families, they definitely can't afford universities in the US. But in terms of ROI, they're very smart with that. They are looking for, so many factors. It's obviously ranking first, but they're looking at everything in terms of safety, and a lot of times they're looking for community and safety. Is there a large Chinese community, where that university is? Um, and also job placement, as Pierce was saying, kind of post completion, with kind of how the job market is in China. Families don't want to send their children, even if they could, spend all the money. They don't want to send their children all the way to another country without having that, obviously not guarantee of getting job placements, but a university that has the tools and the resources to help guide their children and themselves, to maybe career readiness, and the job market. So that's kind of a lot of things that, when I was there last fall, some of the key points they're looking at. And in terms of the majors and the programs of study, I think traditionally China has been kind of business minded, but that's kind of grown. And I think you see that in a lot of markets where it's always been, a certain kind of major or course of study. We've had students, go into psychology, the hard sciences, even students in performing arts. So it's a little bit more wider of a range in terms of the programs of study that they're looking into. And that's another factor in terms of selecting which university.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely, Bayo. That's a great point. The business education has always been king in China, but
Mhm.
we've definitely seen a marked increase in interest in, like you said, psychology is a
Yeah.
big one, and other humanities for sure have grown a lot, particularly at the graduate level.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing. Like as you like Chinese students are tend to shy, especially when they are speaking to like foreigners in like foreign language. So it's important to create a comfortable environment for them. Probably you can learn some simple Chinese like 你好, hello, right? Like 有什么可以帮助你吗? Like how can I help or what would you like to know? It can quickly like open a door for a conversation and make them feel like more comfortable, right?
Because you're making the effort to speak their language, then in return, perhaps they feel less barriers to, yeah, I can see that's a nice icebreaker.
Yeah, there's one small thing I want to add.
Yeah. Chloe, it's a great point. I do speak Mandarin, and I have found that just trying at any level really does make a difference, and it makes the interaction that much more valuable. So even if you know a few words, it goes a long way, and they feel respected, and also just they're amazed by it. And, it's just a great interaction. But generally, yeah, if you just approach the conversation as more of a consultative approach, they will be shy. You have to pry it out of them as much as you can. Try not to take it personally that they're not disinterested. It's just maybe they don't know how to communicate it, or they don't even know the questions to ask. So you just have to be there to guide them.
Yeah.
I usually, whenever I talk to students, I like to try to be funny to make it, a little bit more comfortable and then kind of like down to their level. Sometimes the humor doesn't hit, but when it does, they do appreciate that. So they appreciate if you know a little bit of Mandarin, be a little light. So that definitely goes a long way when you're speaking to, 17, 18-year-old students, or even parents. Also, with the help of Sunrise, we've actually had some materials translate in Mandarin. I think that goes a long way too. I think students and parents appreciate that, especially some parents if they really don't know English. Having materials, brochures, pamphlets, one pagers in Mandarin, I think that goes a long way.
And I think for a lot of schools too, this is something that you can kind of DIY where you get a current Chinese student giving a testimonial about their experience and maybe addressing things like safety and like what makes your institution unique, how they benefited from it. Alumni can also be a fantastic resource for this. And in China, like authenticity really goes a long way. So like just a 30 to 60-second video can move the needle in a lot of cases. So we strongly encourage that. And one thing that's obviously on people's minds, especially in the US, is, the tariff situation with China. And I thought Chloe could maybe give the perspective from Chinese families, what sort of coverage that's currently getting in China, and how that potentially is affecting the calculus of studying abroad.
Yeah, I attend an education fair in Wuhan last week. Like China ICAC. It gathered like more than 200 international high school counselors and more than like 100 universities from around the world. And based on what we talk about this with Chinese parents, most people are not like sensitive to the situation now because it doesn't affect people daily life. It's not like a real war, and it takes years for a family to prepare if they decide to send their children to another country for higher education, right? So if students are planning to study abroad, so their choice of destination will not affect that easy. And it really depends on the family income and tuition fee, whether they can like afford to study abroad or in the US. Yeah, that's something I want to mention.
And it certainly can be challenging right now forecasting what is going to unfold with U.S.-China relations. Obviously, we're all optimistic. We hope a trade deal will be worked out as soon as possible, just because of how mutually dependent the U.S. and China are on each other. But it does make it a little bit difficult in terms of forecasting travel there, things like that. And for our panelists, is China, or is that a destination that you're still going to be traveling to in the fall and the spring? Is that something you're waiting and seeing? What does that look like on your end, if you care to comment on it at all?
Sure. For K-State, China is still a very important market. We're planning to continue our efforts. And also on the positive side, Karen, I think things like the cost of traveling to China are very beneficial to the US. Dollar is strong. The price of tickets have gone down a lot. Right after COVID, prices when they just opened up the skies, they were close to $10,000. When I traveled last month, my ticket was very reasonable, about $1,600. So the cost of food, the hotels is beneficial to use institutions. So I think we're planning to continue our efforts in China.
Excellent.
Yeah, same thing with us. Actually had a colleague that went last fall with Sunrise, and then actually our VP of enrollment was in China last week. So China, we're not giving up on China. Obviously, it's you know, global market, and there's still a lot of interest. So we do continue to plan on growing our efforts in China, um, uh, despite different obstacles. But there's always going to be obstacles in this industry. Um, but even the last few months with everything happening, we still have a lot of inquiries and prospects reaching out to us from China. So there's still a lot of interest, and I think the value of an American education is still a top priority for a lot of parents in China.
So,
Yeah, I absolutely echo what both my colleagues have just said. Yeah, absolutely.
and we're coming in on close to the half-hour mark, so I'll just see if there's any other Q&A questions that have come in, and any sort of closing thoughts any of our panelists have that they'd like to share, I think would be greatly appreciated as well. As I mentioned, we'll share the recording of today's session along with a PDF with a couple of resources that we hope everyone finds valuable.
Well, I'll just add that my first experience traveling with Sunrise was just last fall. We had used Sunrise for several years prior to COVID, both undergrad and grad level. But this was my first experience with Sunrise, and I have to say that I was very impressed with just the organization and the professionalism across the board, with the execution of all the planning and the details from pre-departure to arrival. It is excellent for either a first-time visitor or somebody who's not been to China in a while, because when you book the travel package and you use the full tour, it's really, you don't have to worry about anything. And so that was very apparent that they were, very organized. So big shout out to Liu Shan on the call here, and the whole team for organizing that, because it really was excellent. And we, we just had a great time. The tour was just, really, really well organized, as I said, and I don't have any complaints. So, that's why I'm so happy to share my perspective on such an important topic. And if you are considering going to China, definitely Sunrise Tour is should be a top consideration.
Thank you so much for saying that. We greatly appreciate it, and yeah, that means a lot.
I want to also, I agree 100% with that. I traveled with Sunrise last October, and especially for people traveling for the first time in any market, it's important to rely on people with experience, people who are gonna be your main resource. So it was a great experience. Um, Sunrise has been helping us also with our online presence in China. That's also very important to have if you want to travel, to have your website running in Chinese, because that's a very important tool to have. And for us, Sunrise has been a very effective way to start our efforts in China.
Yeah, just a few closing remarks. I agree with both my colleagues. I think if it's your first time or it's been a while. I think making sure you're there with the experts to guide you, especially with how China is kind of in terms of their apps and everything. It's really um, they don't use like Google and everything. It's always good to kind of get acclimated to all of their products with experts of Sunrise. And we've seen, with that said, at the Chinese market, students, unlike US students and students from other parts of the world, they're not using YouTube, they're not going on Google. So the most effective way in, getting into the Chinese market is to utilize all of their apps and their tools and everything in Mandarin. Sunrise been obviously a big help in our efforts to grow marketing in China. So it's been very useful with Sunrise.
And the schools that we visited too, I'll add, they were very diverse in the student representation and interests and all types of schools, all different. So we were at the graduate level. We were looking at students already in their bachelor's. And they were all very engaged, good attendance and, all types of schools across multiple tier cities. So it just really was a great experience. And again, just something that I would recommend if you are not that experienced in China or you're looking to get back into the market after a couple of years.
Well, thank you all so much for those compliments. We really appreciate it. And for all our attendees on the call, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule. And we'll follow up with you again just with the recording, a few more insights, a PDF, and just wishing you all the best moving forward. We know it's a daunting time right now in higher ed, but we really value the work that you're doing. It is essential. And yeah, just onward and upwards.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today.
Thanks, everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Be safe.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you, Karen. So I'll see you in